I didn't cry when my engagement party was canceled. I nodded. I said, I understand. And then I sat there with my phone still warm in my hand, listening to the quiet hum of the city outside our apartment, feeling something inside me settle into a very clear, very dangerous calm. My fiancé had just told me, 48 hours before our engagement party, that it wasn't Instagram worthy enough. Not the timing, not the money already spent, not the 80 people who'd booked flights, arranged childcare, taken time off work. The problem was the lighting, the backdrop, and, most importantly, the people. Some of my people weren't photogenic. He didn't say the word fat. He didn't have to. The pause did that work for him. The vague gesture with his hand. The way his voice softened, like he was being reasonable, like he was sparing me something. I remember staring at the wall as he talked, my reflection faint in the dark window. 29 years old, recently engaged, supposedly planning a life with someone who loved me. Loved me, as long as I didn't ruin the aesthetic. When he finished, he waited. I could hear it in his breathing, confident, certain I'd fold like I always did. And I had folded before, for the dress he hated, for the restaurant he thought was too casual, for the friends he tolerated but never liked. So I said it. You're right. I'll handle everything. His relief was instant, warm, affectionate. He told me this was why he loved me, because I got it. Because I understood that some things mattered more than feelings. After we hung up, I sat there for 10 minutes without moving. My laptop was still open, a spreadsheet glowing on the screen. 80 confirmed RSVPs, names I loved, people who'd shown up for me long before he ever did. And that's when I made a decision. I didn't cancel the party. I kept the venue, I kept the open bar, I kept the date. I just changed the reason. By the time the emails went out, the engagement party was officially rebranded as my Dodged a Bullet celebration. Same time, same place, different truth. At that moment, I didn't know it yet, but that choice would cost me my engagement, my ring, and the man I thought I was going to marry. And it would give me back something far more important, myself. We met the way a lot of modern relationships begin, without fireworks, without destiny screaming its name. It was practical, convenient, comfortable. A mutual friend's birthday dinner, a long table, too much noise, not enough space. He ended up sitting across from me, sleeves rolled to his forearms, laughing easily, the kind of man who made eye contact when you spoke and remembered details later. I noticed that before anything else. Not his looks, not his job, the attention. He worked in PR. I was in IT consulting. Different worlds, but compatible ones, or so it seemed. He talked about campaigns, brand image, narratives. I talked about systems, logic, problem solving. He said he liked that I was grounded. I said I liked that he was ambitious. We balanced each other. That was the story I told myself. Early on, he was attentive in a way that felt flattering. He suggested restaurants with good ambiance. He'd adjust where we sat so the lighting hit better. If I laughed too loudly, he'd smile and say, "You're cute when you forget people are watching." It sounded playful, almost affectionate. When he asked me to change my outfit once, just once, I didn't think much of it. "That color doesn't photograph well," he said, standing behind me, hands resting lightly on my shoulders. "Trust me." I did. I trusted him when he started curating things. Not controlling, just refining. The bars we went to, the photos we posted, the stories we told. Our life slowly became something that could be framed, cropped, filtered. And I let it happen because nothing felt wrong enough to stop. The proposal was perfect. Of course it was. My favorite restaurant. A ring hidden in dessert. Soft music. Candles. The kind of moment people dream about. I cried. Real tears. He cried too, quietly, briefly, like it was part of the script, but not something he wanted photographed. I said yes. He posted the ring before the plates were cleared. 17 photos. Different angles. Different captions. By the time we got home, there were hundreds of likes. Comments from people I barely knew. Stunning. So deserved. Power couple. He kept refreshing the screen, smiling every time the number jumped. I told myself it was excitement. I told myself this was what happiness looked like now. The planning started immediately. He had opinions about everything. Strong ones. Venues that weren't elevated enough. Florals that looked cheap on camera. Guest lists that needed editing. I handled logistics, budgets, contracts, deposits. He handled veto power. We split costs evenly. That felt fair, responsible, a partnership. But somewhere along the way, the party stopped being about us. It became about optics. I noticed the way he talked about people when they weren't in the room, how often he described others in terms of how they looked, not who they were, how he winced when someone tagged us in an unflattering photo, how he'd quietly ask me to untag myself. Still, I stayed, because love, I thought, meant compromise, growth, adjusting, and because nothing terrible had happened yet. No betrayal, no screaming fights, no clear line crossed. Just small erasures. My preferences, my comfort, my people. So when he called me that Thursday afternoon and said we needed to talk about Saturday, my stomach dropped, but part of me already knew. This wasn't coming out of nowhere. It was the natural conclusion of a story that had been writing itself for a long time. I just hadn't wanted to read it. The first real warning sign didn't arrive as a fight. It arrived as a suggestion. We were sitting on my couch, laptops open, half watching a show neither of us cared about, while he scrolled through potential vendors for the engagement party. I remember the glow of the screen reflecting off his face, the way his jaw tightened slightly every few seconds. "This venue is beautiful," I said, pointing. "It's affordable, too." He leaned closer, squinting. "Yeah, but look at the ceiling." "The ceiling? It's low, makes photos feel cramped." He flicked his finger, dismissing it. "Also, the chairs are dated." I laughed. I actually laughed. People aren't coming for the chairs. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You say that now, but once the photos are out there, that's what people remember." People, always people. A few days later, my cousin messaged me, excited about the party. She sent a photo of the dress she was thinking of wearing, asking if it fit the vibe. I showed it to him, smiling. He tilted his head. "She's sweet," he said slowly, "but maybe don't put her too close to us in group shots." I froze. "What?" "I'm just thinking about composition," he replied quickly, like he'd rehearsed it. "You know, balance, symmetry." That night, I lay awake longer than usual, staring at the ceiling, replaying the comment. He hadn't said anything cruel outright. That was the problem. Everything was wrapped in language that sounded reasonable. Another time, he suggested trimming the guest list. "Do we really need all your college friends?" he asked, scrolling through names. "Some of them feel random." "They're important to me." "I know," he said, reaching for my hand. "But it's our engagement. It should feel curated." Curated. The word stuck with me. I started noticing patterns I'd brushed off before. The way he'd angle himself slightly forward in group photos. How he'd ask for retakes until everyone looked exactly right. How he'd joke about fixing things in post. Once, at a casual dinner, someone tagged us in an unflattering picture. He didn't say anything, just quietly untagged himself later. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, "just protecting the brand." I didn't know whether he was joking. Planning meetings became tense in small, accumulating ways. He rejected florists because the arrangements photographed too busy. He wanted to swap champagne brands, not because of taste, but because the label wasn't recognizable enough. Every no felt like a tiny dismissal. Every suggestion of mine felt like something to overcome. Still, I told myself this was stress. Wedding-adjacent stress. That people got weird around big events. Then came the spreadsheet. We were reviewing the final RSVP list when he paused, finger hovering over a name. "My grandmother's." "She's definitely coming, right?" he asked. "Yes," I said, confused. "Why wouldn't she?" He hesitated. "No reason. She doesn't fly much, does she?" "That's why this matters to her." He nodded, but something about his expression tightened, like he was doing mental math that didn't involve feelings. By the time Thursday arrived, the call, the cancellation, the comment about photogenic guests, it felt sudden. But it wasn't. It was just the first time he said the quiet part out loud. And once he did, I couldn't unhear it. I couldn't pretend anymore that this was just about a party. This was about how he saw the world, and where I, and the people I loved, fit inside it. The call came Thursday afternoon, right when I was finalizing the seating chart. I remember because I was adjusting place cards for people who'd already rearranged their lives to be there. Flights booked, hotels paid for, favors packed. My phone buzzed against the desk, his name lighting up the screen. "Hey," he said, voice light. Too light. "Do you have a minute?" My stomach dropped before my brain caught up. "What's wrong?" "We need to talk about Saturday." There it was. I leaned back in my chair, eyes drifting to the calendar on my wall. 2 days. "Okay, what about it?" He exhaled, slow and deliberate, like he was about to deliver bad news gently. "I've been thinking about the venue. My fingers tightened around the phone. What about it? It's just not giving what it needs to give. I blinked. What does that mean? The lighting is off, he continued, warming to the topic. And honestly, some of the people you invited aren't really photogenic. There was a pause, just long enough. Photogenic, I repeated. Not everyone, he rushed to add, but like your college friends and your cousin Deb with the... He made a vague motion I couldn't see but instantly understood. Wait. He didn't say it. He didn't have to. I stood up, heart pounding. Are you serious right now? I'm being practical, he replied. We only get one engagement party. The photos last forever. The party is in 48 hours, I said. People have flights booked. I know, he said soothingly. But think about it long term. Do you really want to look back in 20 years at some basic rooftop with mediocre string lights? Mediocre? I laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. Those string lights cost $1,200. Exactly, he said. For that price, they should look like stars, not like someone's backyard barbecue. I stared at the wall, pulse roaring in my ears. I already called the venue, he added casually. They said we can get 60% back if we cancel by tonight. You already called them? My voice came out quieter than I expected. I'm just trying to be efficient. Then, like a gift, the Rosewood Hotel has this incredible ballroom. Crystal chandeliers. Very old money aesthetic. We could reschedule for spring and do it right. People are coming now, I said. My grandmother is flying for the first time in 10 years. There was a beat. She'll understand. That did it. Something inside me went still. I looked at the spreadsheet on my screen. 80 confirmed yeses. Names stacked neatly in rows. People who loved me. People who didn't need filters or chandeliers to matter. You know what? I said calmly. You're right. His relief was immediate. Really? I'll handle everything. Oh, babe, he said warmly. I knew you'd get it. This is why I love you. You understand that some things are more important than feelings. Got it, I replied. Perfect, he said. Can you text everyone? I don't want to deal with the drama, and maybe don't mention the real reason. Just say venue issues. Sure, I said. After we hung up, I stood there, phone in hand, staring at the screen. 10 minutes passed. Then I opened my laptop and started typing. Subject, important update, engagement party. This Saturday. I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't soften it. I told them the truth. That the party had been canceled because it wasn't Instagram worthy enough. That the guests weren't photogenic enough. That I wasn't comfortable lying about it. And then I added one more thing. That since plans were already made and deposits already paid, I was throwing the party anyway. Same time, same place, same open bar, different theme. A dodged-a-bullet celebration. Dress code, whatever makes you feel good. Photogenic not required. When I hit send, my hands were shaking, but my chest felt strangely light. Then I texted him. All handled. Everyone's been notified. 3 heart emojis appeared almost instantly. You're the best. I stared at the screen and smiled. Yeah, we'd see about that. Because in choosing honesty over aesthetics, I just set something irreversible in motion. And by the end of the weekend, nothing, including us, was going to look the same. The fallout didn't wait until Saturday. It started on Friday afternoon while I was at work, trying and failing to focus on a client call. My phone buzzed once, then again, then again. I ignored it. Meetings had a way of stretching when your mind wasn't in them, and I told myself whatever it was could wait an hour. By the time I finally glanced down, there were 23 missed calls, all from him. Then a message from an unknown number. Security says your fiancé is downstairs. My stomach dropped. I excused myself, walked toward the break room, and found him there, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes blazing in a way I'd never seen directed at me before. What the hell did you do? He demanded the second the door closed. I set my bag down slowly. I notified everyone, like you asked. You told them I canceled because of Instagram, he snapped. You made me look shallow. I told them the truth, I said evenly. You said the venue wasn't Instagram worthy. You said some of my guests weren't photogenic. That was a private conversation. You asked me to lie to 80 people, I replied. I chose not to. He laughed, sharp and disbelieving. My grandmother called me shallow. My own grandmother. My bridesmaids group chat is tearing me apart. He shoved his phone toward me. Messages flew by. Accusations. Disappointment. People I recognized. People I didn't. Look at this, he said. They think I'm some kind of monster. I looked up at him. Then maybe ask yourself why your behavior looks monstrous when people see it clearly. His face flushed. You're taking their side? There shouldn't be sides, I said. But you created them when you decided appearances mattered more than people. You're being dramatic, he snapped. It's just a party. Then why cancel it? He opened his mouth, closed it. Silence stretched between us. Fix this, he finally said. Send another email. Say you were joking or angry. No. His eyes hardened. If you go through with this joke party tomorrow, we're over. The words landed heavier than he probably intended. I met his gaze. Okay. He froze. What? I said okay. He pulled out his phone immediately, dialing. I watched it vibrate in his hand as I let it ring. I'm serious, he said, voice lowering. You're humiliating me. I'm done lying for you, I replied. He stormed out. Saturday arrived anyway. The venue looked incredible. Better than I remembered. The coordinator, who'd heard about the situation, greeted me with a grin. This is the most honest event I've seen in 15 years, she said. We added a few extras. People started arriving early. The energy was different. Lighter, louder, real. My cousin Deb wore a shirt that read, "Too pretty for your feed." My college friends brought a homemade slideshow titled "Red Flags Ignored." My grandmother arrived in sequins, laughing like she hadn't laughed in years. By 8 o'clock, the place was full. I danced, I laughed, I hugged people I hadn't seen in years. At one point, a group of single women pulled me into a photo, mock bridesmaid poses, me in the center instead of a bride. Someone posted it. Within minutes, my phone lit up. I turned it off. The party went until 2 in the morning. Music blared. Stories were shared. People toasted to dodging bullets, to choosing joy, to being loved as they were. For the first time in months, I felt light. Sunday morning brought the hangover. And him. He showed up at my apartment with his sister and his mother, faces tight with judgment. The door hadn't even fully opened before the insults started. You look disgusting, he said. I smiled tiredly. Why are you here? To talk sense into you, his mother said, stepping forward. I didn't humiliate anyone, I replied. I told the truth. You turned our family into a joke, she snapped. Only because the truth made it one. Then he said it, the thing that ended everything. At least I have standards, he said coldly. Look at yourself, nearly 30, mediocre job, basic apartment. I was trying to elevate you. The room went silent. I took a breath. Thank you, I said softly. That makes this easy. Get out. The engagement ended right there, not with tears. With clarity. And when the door closed behind them, I sat down on the floor, heart racing, not from grief, from relief. I thought the breakup would be the end of it. That once the ring was off, once the door had closed behind him and his family, the story would quietly resolve itself. Painful, yes, but contained. Something I'd process privately, slowly, like any other ending. I underestimated how much control he needed to feel whole. Monday morning, my phone buzzed before I even got out of bed. Notifications stacked on top of each other. Tags, mentions, messages from people asking if I was okay. I opened social media and immediately understood why. He'd posted a long story, carefully worded, emotional, victimized. He wrote about being blindsided, about how I'd manipulated the narrative, about how I'd publicly humiliated him out of spite. He said he'd had concerns for months about my emotional instability, and that the party had been a breaking point. It was impressive, honestly, if you hadn't been there, if you hadn't seen the email, if you hadn't heard his words yourself. But people had been there. Comments flooded in. We were literally at the party. You said it wasn't Instagram worthy. Didn't you ask someone to lose weight for wedding photos? This isn't the story you think it is. My favorite came from a woman who'd been standing next to me at the bar that night. The only thing she manipulated was the open bar, and we thank her for it. By noon, he started blocking people. Anyone who didn't immediately take his side disappeared from his feed. Mutual friends, old friends, even coworkers. It was like watching a bridge burn in real time. Then the voicemail started. At first, they were angry. You ruined my reputation. People think I'm shallow because of you. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Then desperate. Please fix this. Just post something, anything. You owe me. By the fourth voicemail, his voice was shaking. My follower count dropped, he said, like it was a medical diagnosis. Brands won't work with me anymore. You destroyed my future. I sat on my couch, phone in my lap, listening without responding. Each message peeled back another layer of the truth I hadn't wanted to see before. This was never about love. It was about image. Tuesday brought escalation in a different form. I got a call from my apartment complex office. Someone had lodged a noise complaint about my unit. Excessive partying, disturbances, disruptive behavior. The description matched Saturday night. Except the party hadn't been there. It had been downtown. Then my manager asked to speak with me privately. An anonymous email had been sent to HR claiming I was unstable, that I'd publicly humiliated a coworker, that my behavior suggested I might be a liability to the company culture. My manager sighed. For the record, my wife and I were at the party, he said, and it was joyful. He advised me to document everything. I did. Screenshots, emails, voicemails, timelines. By Wednesday, the escalation turned legal. His father texted me. Can we talk? We met for coffee that morning. He looked tired, older than I remembered. I'll be direct, he said. He wants to sue you for the deposits. I blinked. For what? He explained the claim, that the refunded money was supposed to go toward a new venue, that I'd misused shared funds. There was no new venue, I said. He wanted to postpone indefinitely. I have the texts. I showed him. He stared at his coffee for a long moment. Between us, he said quietly, his mother and I never liked how he treated you. That surprised me. The criticism, the pressure, the way nothing was ever good enough. He shook his head. We hoped marriage would mellow him. Marriage doesn't fix people, I said. He nodded slowly. No, I suppose it doesn't. The legal threats, he admitted, were empty. Bluster. Panic. He wasn't going to support them. Before we left, he asked one question. Was there someone else? He asked gently. Is that why you threw the party? I unlocked my phone and scrolled through photos. Me dancing with friends, with cousins, with grandmothers. Do you see a replacement? I asked. He didn't. That party wasn't about revenge, I said. It was about honesty. He sighed. You're better off. Thursday, I thought it might finally die down. Instead, I woke up to a notification that made me laugh out loud. He'd created a Facebook event. A real engagement party. Rosewood Hotel. Crystal chandeliers. Next month. He'd invited everyone. The responses were brutal. Is there a BMI requirement at the door? Will we need headshots to qualify? Can't make it. Too unphotogenic. The event disappeared within 2 hours. By then, the truth was unavoidable. The escalation wasn't about me hurting him. It was about him losing control of the narrative and realizing he couldn't get it back. And for the first time, instead of feeling scared or defensive, I felt something else entirely. Free. Freedom didn't arrive all at once. It came in waves, some light, some heavy, and the darkest one hit when everything finally went quiet. No calls, no posts, no threats. Just silence. That's when the doubt crept in. It was late, well past midnight. I was sitting on the floor of my living room, back against the couch, surrounded by the aftermath of a life half packed and half abandoned. One shoe by the door. A picture frame leaning against the wall, photo turned face down. The engagement ring sat on the coffee table, catching the light every time a car passed outside. I hadn't touched it in days. Without the noise, without the anger, the outrage, the validation from people who'd seen what happened, there was nothing left to distract me from the question I'd been avoiding. What if I overreacted? I replayed everything in my head, frame by frame. His tone, his words, my email, the party, the laughter, the fallout. Had I embarrassed him unnecessarily? Had I gone too far? Had I turned something fixable into something broken beyond repair? That's the thing about long-term criticism. It rewires you. Even when the person causing it is gone, their voice stays behind. I heard it in the quiet. You're dramatic. You don't understand optics. You always make things harder than they need to be. I picked up the ring, rolling it between my fingers. It was beautiful, perfectly cut, expensive. He'd chosen it carefully, after weeks of research, after asking what styles performed best in photos. Not what I liked, what photographed well. My chest tightened. I thought about the little moments I'd dismissed, the way I'd check mirrors before entering rooms, the way I'd apologize automatically. Sorry, am I standing weird? The way I'd stopped inviting certain friends' places because I didn't want to deal with the tension. I hadn't noticed myself shrinking in real time. That realization hurt more than the breakup. I stood up abruptly, heart racing, and walked to the bathroom. The mirror reflected a woman I barely recognized, eyes tired, shoulders tense, jaw clenched, like she was bracing for impact. When did you start believing this was normal? I asked my reflection. The answer came quietly. When love started feeling conditional, I sank back down onto the couch, the weight of it pressing into my chest. For the first time since everything exploded, I let myself cry. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears slipping down my face, soaking into the sleeve of my sweatshirt. Not because I missed him, but because I'd lost myself trying to be enough for someone who was never satisfied. The next morning didn't bring relief. It brought exhaustion. I went through the day on autopilot. Coffee I couldn't taste. Emails I barely read. Every small task felt heavier than it should have, like my body was finally processing weeks of adrenaline. That afternoon, I got one last voicemail. Not angry, not desperate, just tired. I don't know how to fix this, he said. Everyone's laughing at me. My followers dropped. Brands won't return my calls. You ruined my life over one comment about photos. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, listening. And for the first time, I felt something unexpected. Pity. Because even now, after everything, he still didn't understand. I deleted the voicemail without responding. That night, I made a decision. I took the ring, placed it back in its box, and set it by the door. Not to return yet, just to acknowledge that it no longer belonged to my future. Then I did something small, almost insignificant. I invited friends to dinner. No theme, no photos, no filters. Just burgers at a place with sticky tables and bad lighting. We laughed until our stomachs hurt. Nobody adjusted angles. Nobody asked for retakes. No one critiqued appearances. It wasn't flashy. It was real. And as I walked home alone afterward, the city lights soft around me, I realized something important. The darkest moment hadn't been the party, or the breakup, or the public fallout. It was the moment I'd almost convinced myself that being diminished was the price of love. And I was done paying it. The shift didn't happen in a dramatic instant. There was no confrontation, no final speech, no last message that tied everything up neatly. It happened quietly, on a Wednesday morning, standing in my kitchen, holding a mug that had gone cold in my hands. I was scrolling without really looking when I saw it. Another post from him, a quote this time. Black background, white serif font. Something about knowing your worth and cutting toxic people out of your life. The comments were thin. A few bots, a few strangers. None of the people who used to show up immediately. For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to defend myself. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel exposed. I didn't feel pulled back into the story. I felt done. That was the moment I understood I'd stopped trying to win. And when you stop trying to win, you regain power. Later that day, I met his father again. Briefly. He handed me an envelope without ceremony. The ring, he said. He asked me to return it. I nodded. Thank you. No apologies, no explanations. Just an ending that felt appropriately quiet. That night, I sat at my desk and opened a blank document. Not an email, not a post, just a list. Things I liked, things I wanted, things I'd stopped doing. It surprised me how long the last section was. I'd stopped wearing certain clothes, stopped inviting certain people, stopped speaking up when something felt off. None of it had happened all at once. It had happened politely, reasonably, with justifications that sounded like love. Seeing it written out stripped away the confusion. This wasn't about a party. It never had been. The real turning point came a few days later when his sister reached out. Her message was short. I owe you an apology. I thought you were overreacting. I wasn't seeing it clearly. We met for coffee. She looked uncomfortable, hands wrapped tightly around her cup. He's spiraling, she admitted. He's making everyone get approval for posts, telling people to delete photos where he doesn't look perfect. He fired his social media manager because she liked one of the party pictures. I listened quietly. I didn't realize how bad it had gotten, she said. I'm sorry I defended it. Something loosened in my chest. Not because I needed her validation, but because it confirmed what I already knew. I wasn't imagining things. Before we left, she slid something across the table. The ring. I told him to keep it, she said. He mailed it back with a note about how it wasn't the cut he wanted anyway. I stared at it for a long moment. That night, I sold it. I donated half the money to a local charity that provides photography services for low-income families. Real moments, real people, no filters required. I posted the receipt, not as revenge, as closure. The response was quiet but meaningful. Messages from people who said they'd felt unseen in relationships. People who said the story had hit closer than they expected. For the first time, I wasn't performing vulnerability. I was simply standing in it. The truth settled fully then. I didn't need to prove I was right. I didn't need to convince anyone he was wrong. The evidence had already spoken. What mattered now was what I chose next. And for the first time in a long time, that choice felt entirely mine. The aftermath wasn't explosive. It was revealing. Once the dust settled, once the outrage cycle moved on to something newer and shinier, what remained was a quieter reckoning, one that didn't announce itself with notifications or headlines. It showed up in who stayed and who didn't. Some people drifted away without explanation, not out of loyalty to him, but discomfort with what the situation had exposed. It's unsettling to watch someone draw a clear boundary when you've spent years avoiding your own. I understood that. I didn't chase them. Others surprised me. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years reached out. Former coworkers, distant relatives, people who said things like, "I didn't know how to say this before," but followed by truths they'd been holding back. They told me they'd seen how he talked to me, how he corrected me in public, how he laughed a little too hard when I made a mistake. They hadn't intervened because nothing looked bad enough. That realization stung, but it also clarified something important. Abuse doesn't always shout. Sometimes it curates. He, on the other hand, did not land softly. Without the engagement, without the curated image of us as a unit, his world began to shrink. Brand partnerships quietly disappeared. Invitations slowed. The circle of people willing to accommodate his demands got smaller by the week. I heard updates secondhand. He'd unfollowed half his contacts, blocked friends who didn't comment fast enough, sent long messages explaining himself, messages that went unanswered. One afternoon, I got a call from my apartment complex again. This time, it wasn't a complaint. "There's a man downstairs asking for you," the front desk said carefully. "He says it's urgent." My chest tightened, but only briefly. "I'm not available," I replied. "Please ask him to leave." I didn't go down. I didn't look out the window. Later, I found out he'd stayed for almost 20 minutes, pacing, checking his phone, before security escorted him out. That used to be the kind of moment that would have rattled me. Instead, I went back to my book. Professionally, things stabilized. HR closed the anonymous complaint after reviewing the evidence. My manager apologized for the stress, for the intrusion. A week later, I was offered a leadership role on a new project. Not as consolation, as recognition. "You've always been solid," he said. "We just see it more clearly now." So did I. Socially, the story took on a life of its own. People reused the dodged a bullet party concept. A friend hosted one after calling off an engagement. Another threw a version after a messy breakup. It became a joke, then a shorthand, then a quiet act of reclamation. The venue even named a package after it. I laughed when I heard. He did not. The last time I heard from him directly was a voicemail I didn't listen to right away. I let it sit for hours, face down on the table, until curiosity gave way to indifference. When I finally played it, his voice sounded smaller. "I don't know who I am without this," he admitted, "without people watching, without being admired." He paused. "I thought you needed me to be better." I stopped the message there, not out of anger, out of clarity, because the fallout wasn't just the loss of a relationship. It was the exposure of a truth he wasn't ready to face, and one I no longer needed to explain. As weeks passed, my life filled in naturally. Dinners with friends, work that felt meaningful, quiet evenings that didn't require documentation. No one asked me to dim myself. No one measured me against a backdrop. And in the absence of constant critique, something remarkable happened. I expanded. The fallout didn't destroy me. It redistributed everything: attention, energy, worth, back where it belonged. With me. Looking back now, the red flags feel obvious. The cropping people out of photos, the retakes, the way he'd asked me to change shirts 3 times before a casual coffee just in case someone snapped a picture, the way he always positioned himself in front of anyone he thought looked less polished. But the truth is, I didn't ignore those signs because I was naive. I ignored them because they were framed as normal. I thought love meant adapting. I thought commitment meant refining yourself to fit someone else's vision. I thought being constantly evaluated was just part of being chosen. What I learned, slowly, painfully, is that love doesn't ask you to disappear in small, reasonable ways. It doesn't make you feel like you're always one adjustment away from being acceptable. It doesn't turn your life into a performance where the audience matters more than the people standing beside you. The party wasn't the point. The party was the proof. Proof that joy doesn't need perfect lighting, that connection doesn't need approval, that the most Instagram-worthy moments are the ones where nobody's thinking about the camera at all. Since then, my life has gotten quieter, but fuller. I eat burgers without photographing them. I laugh without checking angles. I invite people without worrying how they'll look in a group shot. I choose spaces where I don't have to earn my place. And sometimes when I look at the photos from that night, the dancing, the ridiculous shirts, my grandmother in sequins, I smile. Not because I won, but because I stopped playing a game I was never meant to survive. If there's a lesson in all of this, it's simple. Choose people who want you at their table, even if you show up exactly as you are. Choose love that celebrates presence over presentation. Choose relationships where flaws aren't something to airbrush out. And if you ever find yourself shrinking to fit someone else's aesthetic, throw the party anyway. Sometimes dodging the bullet is the beginning of everything. Thank you for listening, for sharing your stories, and for being part of this space. If this resonated with you, feel free to comment, share, and subscribe. There are more stories like this coming. And my grandmother? She's already asked for an invitation to my next not wedding party. She says she has the outfit ready.